Hey, welcome back to the podcast, episode number 73 today. It's not working. I'm always saying this. It is not working. It's one of the biggest thoughts that gets in my way of success. And I'm finally starting to shift it. And I want to share that journey with you because I feel like that this is a problem for a lot of us. Welcome to the Cut the Stress Show, formerly the I Cut the Mustard Show, where you'll learn how to stop stressing, stop stress eating, and finally create the body that you can enjoy forever. If you're ready to lighten up, pun intended, then you're in the right place because you shouldn't have to hate creating the body that you love. Okay, so before we get started today, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey the last couple of weeks. The last 2 weeks have been amazing in so many ways and just awful in so many ways. When we went on vacation, we got sick. Oh, it was the thing, right? We got sick whenever we got back, and I got so sick. In fact, last week was the first week I've ever missed a podcast. It's been almost a year. I need to look up when my year anniversary is for creating this podcast. It's been about a year exactly, and it was my first time ever missing a podcast because I was ready to create my next batch of podcasts. I've got them all written down. I was ready to roll, and my voice and my energy just was not there for several days. So I just gave up. I threw in the towel. I said, it just has to happen sometimes. Okay. So I wasn't here last week. In fact, you might hear my voice be a little bit different this round of podcasts because I am still just getting over a little bit of a sickness. So a little sick. My family was sick. It was kind of up and down. My daughter's 9. She was like taking care of me a lot of the days, and she just stepped right into that role. And it was really, really awesome to see her do that. So I've been in the bed a lot. I've been sick. But this last couple of weeks has been really, really awesome for me because I felt like there have been so many sweet moments where I just had so many ahas, like revelations that I have been waiting for so long, that have helped me to just see things in a new way with my business, with my personal life, with the way that I relate to myself. And it has been a treasure. I think I just love those moments whenever you get this big aha. And you're like, oh my goodness. I just went in this morning, actually told one to my husband. And I think they're hilarious because you've got this big aha and like something inside you has changed. The energy has changed. You are a totally different person. And then you go to tell someone else and it's like this thing that you've heard 1,000 times before, right? Like I remember the only one that's coming to off the top of my head right now is, God loves me. I remember whenever it really sank in one time and I went to tell, I believe it was my husband or my mom or something. And I was like, do you know what? God loves me. And I know that those are just the same words, but now they actually mean something. I just can't describe to you that they mean something now. So anyways, I want to share one of those ahas, hopefully, that I want to share with you is that it's working. That's one that I got to tackle this week. It is working. I think the two biggest things that have held me back in my life, that I've noticed, especially now that I have started my business, is number one, I'm not enough, right? It's just not good enough. I'm not enough. All my efforts are just not good enough, right? That one keeps showing up over and over. And I've talked about it on the podcast several times. And then the other one that gets in my way is it's not working. And those are very intertwined problems, not good enough and not working. So this week, one day I decided that I would not beat myself up about it anymore. Okay. I had a certain amount of time planned and I had certain tasks that I was going to do during that time. And I decided to just really focus. It was one of those days when I went into work and I just had so many ideas and I was writing a bunch of content. I was making a ton of emails and posts and just like energy was flowing through me. And I just felt like I accomplished so much in just those couple hours that I had to work on it that day. And it was so much fun. And I enjoyed it so much, and I had achieved so much. But by the end of the time that I had to be done, right? By the end of my time working, then I found myself suddenly getting very discouraged because I had a whole other 3 other things that I wanted to get done. And there was no way I was going to do those all in the time that I had that day. That was ridiculous, number one, for me to even think that I could get them done in that time. But I just have this endless list of tasks that I want to get done and not enough time to do them, right? I think you guys, we can all relate to this, right? Even our houses, right? They're never clean. They never stay clean. That laundry never stays done. It keeps getting dirty and the food just keeps getting eaten and I have to make more food. And it's just life. And you know what? I have to sleep every night. I just keep getting tired. So I think it's easy. You can see it from both sides, right? Both of them are true. I've said this before too, that there's many truths available to us at the same time, and they're equally as true. So it's equally as true that it's not enough. I could have done more, maybe, right? It's equally as true that it wasn't enough, that I didn't get everything done on my list. But it's equally as true that it was enough. So that day I decided to take my own advice and just start deciding that it was enough. Whether or not I believed it yet, I didn't care. I just decided I was going to start believing that whatever I did with the time that I gave myself to do it was going to be enough. And I was just going to decide that and keep telling myself that it was enough and look for reasons why it's enough until I started believing myself. And that particular day, didn't take very long, actually. I said, you know what? This was enough. And I'm going to celebrate all of the wonderful things that I did during this time, this work time that I had. And it was really cool. Because whenever I decided that it was enough, I got to feel proud of myself, right? I got to feel proud of myself that I did all those things and enjoy that pride in myself, right? And it feels great. And and whenever I say pride in myself, a little side here, I'm not saying that I was like, oh, I'm so much better than everybody else. No, I just got to enjoy the fruits of my labors and say, you know what, you did a good job, and love myself and give that love to myself. So number one, I got to feel proud, which felt really great. And then I got to feel gratitude because on those times when things just like really flow together, I just really feel like God is helping me and he's pouring his spirit into me and just really helping me think clearly and say some encouraging words to you guys. And because I said it's enough, I got to pause and not only feel proud of myself, but also proud of my God and just gratitude for what he gave me that day and enjoy the abundance that I felt that day. And it was really cool. And then, so I got to go enjoy the rest of my day because I worked hard and I felt great about it. And I decided it was enough. I had filled with gratitude and I moved forward, and the rest of my day was so much sweeter because this is what normally happens. I have this huge list of things that I think I'm magically going to get done in like 2 hours. And then I don't get them all done, even though I do a lot of them and I do a great job like I did that day. And then I start beating myself up for not getting that done and not getting that done. And I'm just dwelling on all the ways that it's not enough. So then I can't enjoy the fruits of the labors that I did do, right? I can't enjoy what I just accomplished. And I'm beating myself up and kind of in this cloud of darkness. Obviously, these aren't the only thoughts that are going on in my head, right? We have tons of other thoughts, but kind of in the background is this notion that, I didn't do good enough. And now I have more to do. And it's never over. It's just like this heaviness, right? And it's really not fun. And because of that, then I can't concentrate on my other stuff. Then I go downstairs and the house is a mess. And then I'm worried about that. And I don't want to have time to get this done. And now I don't have time to get that done. And it's just this downward spiral. And then I don't enjoy my time with my family and my kids. And it's just no fun at all. But I promise that this podcast is about it's working and not working too. But hey, you know what? This is the reason that it's not working too. So I just want to share that whole experience with you because Part of the reason, one of my motivations for creating a business and being successful is to feel like I'm enough, right? If I'm honest with myself and my motivations, one of them is to prove to myself that I'm good enough, that I've got this, that I can make a contribution to the world. And that's one of the reasons that I do what I do, right? And I think it's a big motivating factor for a lot of us to feel like we're making a difference in the world, like we matter, right? And that we're good enough. Oh, that's good enough thing. Man, it's a wrestle. So that's kind of what I'm hoping is the pot of gold at the end of my journey, whatever the end is, right? So I think if I make this certain amount of money, then I'm going to feel like I'm enough. Or have this many clients, then I'm going to feel like I'm enough. Or if I accomplish this thing, right? And I think with diet and exercise, it's the same, right? Whenever I stop overeating, I'm going to feel like I'm enough, right? Or whenever I lose that weight, that 100 pounds or 50 pounds or the last 15 pounds, whatever it is, then I'm going to feel like I'm enough. But the truth is that you're not magically going to feel like you're enough if you get there, right? You can't hate yourself all the way there and suddenly love yourself, right? And that's true with the enoughness. There's nothing that I can do that's magically going to make me think that I'm enough. It's backwards. Again, it's always backwards. And you've got to believe that you're enough first, and then you're going to accomplish those things a whole lot easier. But the only way to feel like you're enough is to just decide that you're enough. And I'm saying this over and over again because I had to say it to myself so many times until it finally clicked this week that I get to decide. I totally do. And you do too. You just get to decide if you're enough. You get to decide if it's working or it's not working. Okay. All of these judgments are actually just decisions. They're just thoughts, and you get to decide. So even though I haven't met my goal for how many clients I'm going to help, and I haven't met my revenue goal, and even though I'm not perfect at my eating, whatever perfect is in my head, I get to decide that it's enough, right? And I get to celebrate it right now. Even whenever it's not enough, you could say it's not enough, right? I get to celebrate it now if I want to, because it's just a choice. It's just a judgment. And I can just decide that it's enough. So I decided it was enough earlier this week. And then the funny thing happened. I'd started looking for ways that other things were enough, right? And I decided that the time that I had with the time that I had to work was enough. So the time that I had with my family, it's enough too. Like, isn't that amazing? I just love that it's enough. Like I have enough time to help them feel my love and to take care of them. And whenever I make dinner, whatever I make, it's enough. And it's enough in so many ways. Isn't that so cool? And I can have pride and gratitude just flood in whenever I decide that it's enough. It's really, really cool. So it may take some practice, because, in some areas of my life, it's taking practice, it's taking creativity to really look and see for how it's enough. But it's actually happening a lot more quickly than I ever thought imaginable. So I was doing my journaling, and I usually do my journaling in the morning, honestly, because I have a lot of ideas and thoughts that just come up whenever I'm fresh in the morning. And so I was noticing and kind of reflecting back on how my journey has been enough and how I've accomplished things. Like suddenly this pattern was coming up that now I'm getting into the working, not working part of the podcast. This pattern was coming up about how I've been working on these goals for a long time, and I keep telling myself it's not working. It's not working. It just keeps failing. It's not good enough, right? Maybe these are the same thing, right? I kept telling myself I'd try something and it wouldn't work, right? It would fail. I kept telling myself it was failing. It didn't work. Then I tried something else and that didn't work. And I tried something else and that didn't work. And so then it is just not working. My whole life is just not working. So I was getting really discouraged by that thought, as you can imagine. And I think you can probably relate to me if you are on a journey to lose weight, to stop overeating like we've been talking about, and you try something and it doesn't work. How many times have I heard this? You've tried everything. Not only have you tried something, you've tried everything and it has not worked. Okay. It just feels like you've tried everything and every time it doesn't work. Am I right? So Just like I said, not enough is a decision and it's just your choice. You can just decide that it's enough. You can actually decide that all of those times that it wasn't working, was working. I'm going to explain it to you because that doesn't make any sense, right? But we actually were reading the scriptures this morning and it talked about how God he doesn't walk a crooked path. He walks a straight path. But it just hit me the way that scripture was worded, that that all of our paths are crooked. Only God has a straight path. Like no human being has a straight path. Looking back, you could go back and say, and I use this example all the time, right? Whenever I was trying to figure out my digestive issues, I spent $15,000 trying to figure it out because I tried this and I tried that and I tried this and I tried that. And we could say they quote unquote didn't work. But the reality was I tried this one thing and it worked a little bit and I learned something there. This is true for you in your journey, in your weight loss, in your struggle with food, in any journey that you're on right now. You've tried something and it didn't work, but you learned something there about why it didn't work. So then you correct and you try something else and it didn't work. And you can learn something there about why it didn't work. Because the truth is, part of it worked and part of it didn't work on almost every single situation. Part of it worked, part of it didn't work. And so you in each crooked path that you take, you're learning something new about yourself and about the goal that you're trying to accomplish. So with weight loss and with overeating, what you maybe have been learning is the same. If you can look back at all of your crooked paths and the ways that it hasn't worked, what you'll ultimately see, I think, is a pattern about yourself, and it will reveal, if we're honest with ourselves, something about ourselves. And in being honest with ourselves and learning from those ways that it didn't work, then we can finally find the way that it does work, and then it starts working. Okay. So that's what happened to me this week with my work too. Suddenly, whenever I decided that I was enough and I started looking for ways that my efforts were enough and my time was enough and my love was enough, then suddenly I realized it's working. It's working. All of those ways that didn't work before were actually enough, because you remember whenever I tried that thing and I learned this about myself and I got this big aha, and then I tried this other thing and it was a little bit closer, but it didn't quite work. But I learned this other thing about myself. And even in just the last week, like I said, the last week was awesome. I learned so many things, because I recognized every single day that I tried something and I failed, I learned something. And I tried it again the next day and I learned something else. And even though every day I didn't get to the goal that I was necessarily trying to get to that day, I learned something. And because of that, I am stronger. I know more about myself. I am getting closer and closer to the path that actually works. And the cool thing is, I said that no human walks a straight path. But the cool thing is, once you've found the path, then you can walk the straight path. You can get straight there. So I'm hoping my rambling is totally making sense to you. But let me give you an example. Just a story example of, whenever you're going to a new place or you go to a new grocery store, they're building a different grocery store. They're moving our grocery store. And my husband's like, man, they're moving it down it's moving 200 yards away. Okay. They're just moving it to a different building and the same building. But, he's like, man, I don't want them to move it because I already know where everything is in that grocery store. and now I don't want them to move my grocery store because then they're going to move everything in the grocery store, right? So if you think of when you walk into a new grocery store that you've never been to, you kind of have to wander around. You don't know the straight path to the beans that you're looking for, or, and you're kind of wandering around trying to figure out where stuff is. And so you've got this wandering path and you might have to backtrack and look and ask somebody, and it's just not very efficient at first. You've got to try again and you've got to fail, but we don't usually think about it like that whenever we're shopping. We don't go down the wrong aisle and say, man, I've failed. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to find the beans, right? We don't do that because it's just something simple and we don't make that much drama out of it. But if you think of that same example and apply it to all the things that I've been saying today, whenever you're going to look for the beans and you go to the wrong aisle, you don't say, I'm not enough and, this is never going to work. You just know that you're enough, right? It's enough that you went there and now you know that the beans aren't in that aisle. So then you move on to another aisle to find the beans, right? So, you've decided that you were enough, even though you didn't do that consciously, and then you moved on until you found that thing, right? And this is true for every journey. We walk crooked paths. We take the wrong turn. That didn't work, but because it didn't work, now we can go find the way that works. And when we find the way that works, it's a really straight shot. So the next time I'm looking for those beans and I go to that grocery store, I know exactly where they are, unless they move them, of course, right? But then my path is straight. I can go straight there. I've got a route that I take through my grocery store now, and it is like clockwork, and I am in bada bing, bada boom. I am in there getting my whole week's worth of groceries in like 25 minutes, hauling my kids around because I am so efficient. I've done it so many times. My path is so straight. Right. And my path is going to be like that one day with my business, with certain areas of my business that I'm struggling with right now. And your path is going to be that way with eating, with certain areas of eating that you're struggling with right now, if you're willing to wander around long enough in the grocery store to find the beans, right? Right? So what I'm trying to say is, think of those beans in that grocery store. Every time you're thinking it's not enough, it's not working, step back and just decide that it is working. Decide that it is enough and play with that idea, because chances are it is working. And the reason that you know that it's working is because that's how it's done, right? We learn from making mistakes, and every mistake is how we know where not to go. It's how we eventually find the right path. And then because we did all of that, the next time we get there, it's a lot straighter. It's a lot easier. Okay. And if you haven't already, come on to the Facebook group. Next week, I'm going to tell you more about it, but I created a Facebook group called Win the Food Fight. You can just Google it on Facebook. That totally makes sense. You can get on Facebook. You can search for the Win the Food Fight group name, and I would love to see you in there. And I'm going to tell you more about it next week. Have a fabulous day. Yoo-hoo! Thanks for joining me. And if you loved this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend, and make sure you're subscribed as well so that you can come back here and we can cut the stress together next week.